I found another Matchbox carry case. This one is dated 1971. Has great graphics on it. And I've already taken a peek inside, and there's some really fun stuff in here. So I'm going to get started with this. I'm going to open it up. This one has kind of a buckle on it. And let's start right away. The first thing that we see, this Peanuts Snoopy. This is by a company called Aviva. Little Snoopy race car. They don't put a lot of dates on the Peanut stuff. It's dated 1966, but that's probably not when it was made. It was probably made in like 70s or early 80s. Now Snoopy's driving his little race car, and Snoopy's yellowed with time. The race car shows wear. I put a bunch of these on eBay. I'll probably throw this one in because I forgot to include it in the lot. Probably throw it in, you know, for the high bidder of that auction. That's a cool little car. Next is the Hot Wheels Power Rocket. Now this thing is just over the top. It's long. It's got twin jet engines in it. It's got a metal base, plastic body. It opens up so you can see the driver. This is from 1998 or 9 or something. Not a bad car. Tootsie Toy. A lot of people collect these Tootsie Toys. This is a Jaguar, maybe the Jaguar D-Type, a little race car. Tootsie Toys weren't my thing. It's too insubstantial. It's just a piece of die-cast metal and a couple of axles and wheels, but I do respect the brand. There's a lot of people who collect those. Now this right here, this is called a Hot Wheels Zowees. It almost looks like a shopping cart with an engine on it. It's a little tiny thing, made in Hong Kong, made by Mattel. Don't know much about the history of these. You can Google it if you want, but this is a Knight. Big engine, big exhaust, die-cast. This is a cool little sort of Hot Wheels offshoot from the Redline era. And speaking of the Redline era, Mattel Hot Wheels Custom T-Bird Tin Button. So you'd buy a Hot Wheels car, and in the package it comes with this button. You could clip it on your shirt pocket, give free advertising to Mattel for the rest of the day, or, you know, claim your loyalty to Mattel Hot Wheels. Just show the other kids that you had some Hot Wheels Redlines, which were taking the world by storm at the time because they were so fast and colorful. Here's something cool. The Batman Batcopter. Now this is Batcopter. Now this is by Corgi Juniors. Little 1/64 scale. It's got these great Batwing chopper blades on the top. This one's broken. I have a lot of Batman die-cast that I've got listed on eBay right now, so I'll probably just throw this in as a bonus to the high bidder. It's probably not worth much on its own. Matchbox. Matchbox Porsche Turbo. This is all black. All die-cast metal, top and bottom. Nice gold graphics. Turbo on the roof. Porsche logo on the hood. I'm not really that into Porsches. This is, to me, it's kind of like a boring casting, but they did a good job on it nevertheless. Now here's something that's always fun to find when you find one of these little cases of die-cast at a yard sale or something. A Tomica. They're not that common in America. This is the Tomica Nissan Bluebird Turbo. These have great detail. This one's kind of beat up, but you see the doors open. It's got a moonroof or a sunroof, whatever you call that. That's a cool little car. I always like to find these. They're much more common in Japan, of course. Now, here we have something really cool. These are called mini Stompers. Schaper made the Stompers. They took a little AA battery and they had a motor in them and lights. These were mini Stompers that probably came in like a Happy Meal or Burger King kids meal. They don't have a battery, they don't have a motor, they just have a rivet in the bottom. This is the Eagle, the AMC Eagle, the jacked up 500 horsepower version of the AMC Eagle. Remember the AMC Eagle? Ugly, probably before its time. That's the Stompers, the mini Stompers version of it. Here's another mini Stompers, the Chevy 4x4 van. This van is out of control. It has a winch. It's jacked up. Imagine driving this thing, you'd probably get 4 miles to the gallon. Maybe that's what 4x4 stands for. 4 miles to the gallon. This is a really cool truck. I wouldn't want to drive it myself, but for off-roading, at least for fantasy off-roading, this is fantastic. And you could have gotten that. I think all you had to do was get a Happy Meal back in the 80s. Now here is the Ford 4x4 pickup. This is number 23 and it's red. I wonder if whoever designed this was a Michael Jordan fan. This is a Ford mini Stomper. Definitely a cool little car that you can have a lot of fun with. And here's the Chevy. Not to leave out the Chevy fans, this is a Chevy Blazer. These Chevy Blazers were just such rot boxes, but they were everywhere. They were super popular cars. And here is this nice yellow with really cool green graphics. The colors that they used on this stuff back then were phenomenal. And these were made in Hong Kong. They weren't made in China, so they're made to a certain level of quality. Here is the Toyota Tercel SR5. I don't even know what a Toyota Tercel SR5 is, but apparently Stompers felt that it was fit to turn it into a big jacked up off-road vehicle so kids could drive it across the table at McDonald's. Whoa! And the best of the Stompers, this is the Dodge Omni pickup truck. Back in the 80s, the late 70s and the early 80s, Dodge had the Omni. It was a compact front-wheel drive car, and they had a bunch of different versions of it. My first car was a Plymouth Turismo, which was basically the notchback Plymouth version of this car. It was a piece of junk. Worst car I've ever owned. But this thing, Dodge Omni pickup, I would love to find one of these in real life now to fix up and to drive. Maybe not a jacked up 4x4 version of it, but this is a cool little car. Now, next we have this Matchbox. This is called the Collectomatic. This would have been really cool, you know, all the times when I was going to Walmart trying to look for Hot Wheels cars, if I could just send the Collectomatic out. And if you're going to Walmart and Kmart at 7 in the morning looking for Hot Wheels cars, just stop it. It is such a waste of time. Do something more productive. Go jogging. Spend time with your family. Just stop it with the die-cast collecting. But there I was every morning for a couple of years. I wish I had this. I could have just sent this instead. And look, it could open up and just scoop up all the Hot Wheels right off the shelf. That is a cool little feature. See, this is why, you know, I like Matchbox and Hot Wheels better than some of the Chinese junk that's out there, because they put those details in. Now here, Hot Wheels, Range Rover. This is a cool enough casting, but this is a Getty promo. The only way to get this car supposedly was to go to Getty. I don't know if you had to fill up your tank or what you had to do to actually get the car, but there was a series of these Getty promo cars. And they're really common. They're not really worth much, but this was based around this Range Rover casting. I mean, there's plenty of other versions of Range Rover, so that's a cool car right there. And this, to me, is a really cool Hot Wheels. I think this is called the Lumina Van. I'm not entirely sure. It looks really interesting from the front and the back. Even the bottom. It's got kind of like a... I don't know what that's supposed to be. But the graphics on this, I wouldn't want to drive a car like this with these crazy graphics, but I'd love it if it was just a plain yellow, driving this around without that gigantic engine in the passenger compartment. This is such a cool looking utilitarian vehicle. I love these 80s, I'm guessing this is from the 80s, these 80s Hot Wheels, the angularity of them. They're really boxy, they have these wild graphics. That to me is a really, really cool car. Now, Matchbox is from England, so it makes sense that they would have a double-decker London bus. This is cool. It's put together in several parts, you know, so they could get the seats in the top. Imagine trying to get the rivets in there. So the rivets in the back there, but that's... You could somehow get a riveting machine in there. This is called the Londoner. Makes sense. If you've never been to London, you should definitely go. It's not that expensive to go, and there's a lot of history there. It's a fantastic place. And then you can ride a real double-decker bus, or not. Here is a Corgi Juniors. Back to the Corgi Juniors. These are, you know, smaller versions. Corgi was known for their larger scale die-cast, but with a ton of detail. But they did the Corgi Juniors, which are kind of a response, I think, to Hot Wheels and Matchbox. And this is a Buick Regal. A weird car. I think this is based on Kojak or... Starsky and Hutch, something like that. I think this is a TV tie-in. I don't think this is just a car that exists on its own, but it's really cool. It has a siren in the roof. It has yellow yellow window glass or plastic, chrome interior. That is a cool car to have. Now here is another Tomica. This one is the Nissan Skyline 2000 Turbo GTES, which is focused now. I think that Japanese kids or Japanese collectors are more interested in detail and accuracy, whereas the American kid wants to see something wild and crazy like this. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with either approach, but I think that's what makes the Tomica cars just a little bit unusual in America, and they're really cool. I never got into collecting them because there's just too many variations. I would have gone crazy. So, now we're through the top, and let's see what we have in the bottom. Right here, this is a Matchbox 62 Corvette. There's nothing that interesting about that. I don't like the wheels, the colors isn't that great, and I think this is a giveaway car at Taco Bell. Honestly, I'd rather have a Taco Bell taco than that dopey Corvette. But it is what it is if you're into Corvettes, if you're into Matchbox. Here is a Dodge Viper. Now, I've always thought the Dodge Viper was kind of a goofy-looking car, but I'm going to guess that I'd think differently if I actually ever drove one, because apparently it's ridiculously fast. This one is by Maisto. I never really got the Maisto thing. It's kind of a dumb name. Instead of, you know, Hot Wheels, Matchbox, just Maisto. But it's reasonably well done. You know, they didn't do a bad job on it. Here's another Viper. This one is Matchbox's version. Dodge Viper GTS. This one's yellow. I think I like the Maisto casting better. This one kind of looks a little wide and parade floatish, but I'm sure it would be fun to drive either way. Now here's a fantastic Hot Wheels from the 80s. The Hot Wheels delivery, I don't know the casting name of this. It's dated 1988. You just picture up here in the suburbs during the summer, these older guys, usually they have these cars like this that are souped up and painted all kinds of wild colors, and they're loud and they're fast and they go to car shows. It's a lot of fun, and this car I just think is a sort of a reaction to or celebration of that lifestyle. I really like that casting a lot, and I especially like the color and the graphics. This is NASCAR diecast. Rusty Wallace #2. I never got into NASCAR. I went to Indy once, watched a couple of practice laps. It was insane watching those cars do 200 miles an hour. If you've never seen that stuff in person, you should see it at least once. But I think with the NASCAR diecast, all the cars look the same, and the people are more focused. Like this, I would collect this car because it's just a cool-looking car. It's a cool-looking casting. But whereas this, I think people want it because it says Rusty Wallace on it. And if you're a Rusty Wallace fan, you want his memorabilia and his merchandise. So I never really got it from that angle. I like the Goodyear Eagles, though. So this is a cool little car. It's made by Action Diecast. It's quality, but it's just not my thing. And now, here's what we call the Hot Wheels Digger. That is such a cool little backhoe. It's got a rivet in the middle, so it swivels. You know, so you can swivel back and forth, and then you can use this shovel to dig dirt. Imagine being a kid and you're out in your sandbox and you got this thing. Let's try and get focused here. Digging and digging. Digging with the Hot Wheels Digger. That is a really, really cool car. That's what I'm talking about with the Hot Wheels and the details and that kind of stuff. And here is something by Hot Wheels. This is called the Excessive, and it certainly is. It's got a metal base. It's got a plastic body. It's very, very ostentatious. It's very, very out there. It swivels in the middle. It's articulated. It's an off-road vehicle. It's got these big off-road wheels, the saw blade wheels. That was one of my, one of the castings that I liked. This was probably 2000 when I was in my heyday of collecting and running around looking for this stuff. Now here is the Hot Wheels, Matchbox Opel Speedster. Small little two-seater, looks like a fun car, not really the car for me. Probably be too big to even fit in this car. But it is what it is. And speaking of it is what it is, here we have the Hot Wheels Mustang Cobra. Now this is kind of a boring, kind of a boring casting. It's just, it's dull. It's got the Mustang logos on there and blah, 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 blah. I don't remember. This would have been kind of when I really started collecting, so I probably owned a bunch of different variations of this. This one has the gold BBS wheels, but this just doesn't really do much for me. Now, this does something for me. This is right here. This is a Hot Wheels Redline. Hot Wheels Redline fire truck, and I forget what the name of the casting is. This is probably an early 70s enamel, you know, from the heyday of the enamels. The condition on this is pretty rough. It had a chrome-plated plastic base, which has faded and lost all of its plating over the years. The paint is worn, the axles are bent, but this is such a cool casting with all these little details, all these little doors and tools. There's a pickaxe in there, and a shovel, and hoses, and ropes. This is just a phenomenal casting, the way this looks in the front. Now next, we have a Topper Johnny Lightning. I'm not really into the Topper Johnny Lightnings at all, but I guess, you know, it is what it is. It's kind of a fantasy car. This is called the Custom Spoiler. It's in rough condition. It's missing a bunch of stuff. It's missing a wheel. It is what it is. It's not really my thing. Now, continuing in the Topper Johnny Lightning theme, here is a Topper Johnny Lightning custom dragster. Custom, for some reason, was a big word back then in diecast. Everything was a custom something. But I guess this really fits the bill. You know, this wouldn't have been a stock car that you'd buy off the showroom by any means. Topper Johnny Lightning's always had kind of like a fantasy element that I really wasn't that into. Even as an adult collector getting into this stuff in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's a cool car. It's got the Spectraflame style paint on it. 2 engines. I'm sure when this was new, it was really fast and fun to play with, but they just never caught on the way Hot Wheels did. I respect Topper. I respect Johnny Lightning. Their newer stuff from the 90s, I have a ton of that stuff, and I'm really into it. But the older stuff, and here's just sort of a wayward engine. I don't know where that came from. Now, here's a Matchbox car. This is the Matchbox Dodge Charger Mark III. And the cool thing about this, it's got this great lime green antifreeze paint. The bottom is red. This is weird. It reminds me of like a sneaker. I don't know why. It reminds me like a ridiculously colored Chuck Taylor or something. But this is cool. The whole cockpit opens up. Imagine barreling down the highway at 185, and then this thing opens up and turns into a sail, and you flip over and over. But that is a really, really cool car. I love these kind of details where something opens up. This is the kind of extra value that Matchbox and Hot Wheels would put into their cars so that kids could enjoy them. Now here's another Hot Wheels casting. This is called the Neat Streeter. It certainly is neat. Now this is something I could imagine, you know, a couple of dudes in the summer at the car show, driving along the highway, making a lot of noise, with the rumbling engines, having a blast, having an absolute blast in cars like this. They did the chop top, and you got the hood scoop, big engine. So that is just a really cool car. Ford oldie but goodie logo on the back. These graphics that's probably from the 70s, like 75 or so. Last but not least, my favorite car of the lot, probably not worth very much. This isn't diecast, this is plastic, and the base is pressed steel, stamped steel, and this is a Tonka car. Probably came from a set, from a car carrier or something like that. It's a little squashed down Volkswagen Bug. Not exactly a dragster, but not really an off-roader either. Just kind of like this really cool, big fat tires. I mean, look how far these tires stick out from the fender wells. This thing, it's not really like that super deformed Japanese look, but it's kind of a predecessor to that. This is a really, really cool car. Again, probably worth $1 if that, but I think it was just one of the best cars in the case. So that's it for this 48 car Matchbox case. I hope you enjoyed going through it as much as I did. I love going through these cases and talking about these cars. So, thanks a lot, and I'll see you with the next one.